Summer vacations are supposed to be the best part of the year. Sun, freedom, memories with people you care about. But for some, they become something else entirely. A time where the line between fun and fear blurs and never goes back. The following stories come from real people, posts buried in forgotten forums, late night confession threads, and emails that still leave me wondering if they were cries for help or warnings. Each story takes place during what should have been a normal summer getaway. A quiet cabin, a cheap motel, a trip to the lake, but behind the heat and nostalgia, something darker waited. So if you've got a vacation coming up, double check your locks, watch who's watching you, and don't ignore that uneasy feeling when something just feels wrong. Here are 3 allegedly true horror stories that might make you cancel your summer plans. Story 1. It was supposed to be one of those classic end-of-summer send-offs, the kind you remember forever for the right reasons. Just 5 of us, packed into a dusty SUV, headed upstate to a remote cabin Jake's uncle rented out to friends only. It didn't have Wi-Fi, no cable, not even proper cell service. That was the whole point. We were going to unplug, drink cheap beer, blast music, maybe skinny dip if the lake wasn't full of leeches. The first night started exactly like you'd expect. Burgers on the fire pit, someone brought a guitar, Taylor Prank called her ex using a voice mod app. I couldn't stop laughing. It was pure, dumb teenage freedom. But around 2, when we were stacking up chairs for ghost stories, we heard footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, circling the wraparound deck. We all froze. Jake killed the lantern, and for about 30 seconds, we stared into the dark silence like idiots in a horror movie. Then, of course, Ryan had to play it cool, probably a deer, or Bigfoot, chill. We laughed, kind of. Nobody admitted it, but I think we were all hoping someone else had invited a 6th person we didn't know about. But by morning, it became something we just didn't talk about. The next day, we hiked past the ridge and found this eerie stillness, like the woods were listening. About 50 feet from the cabin, carved into the side of a red pine, was a symbol, circular, rough, a twisted spiral with dagger-like ends. I assumed it was something pagan or artsy. Taylor said her brother was into Wicca, and it looked familiar, but not in the good way. We thought that was the weirdest part until we got back and found a small metal lockbox open under the porch steps. I swear it hadn't been there before. I mean, even if it had, the carving inside the lid felt too fresh. Same spiral symbol, barely rusted metal. Inside were 2 things, a dried out rose and a perfectly clean pair of children's shoes. It was Ryan who laughed it off and said some cult kids probably came out here before us, trying to manifest their inner demons. None of us slept easy that night. And the next morning, my phone was under the couch, unlocked. I don't remember touching it, and I never leave it out. Not in strange places, not in strange houses. But even worse, the camera roll. There were 7 black and white photos shot at night, all taken inside the cabin, while we were asleep. Shots of feet hanging off the bed, someone's silhouette in the bathroom mirror, my hand dangling over the edge of the couch. One showed Ryan's head on the pillow, mouth slightly open. No one confessed to taking them. Obviously, we packed up. It wasn't even a debate. Jake said he'd grab a few things from the car before we left. Taylor was crying. I was trying to delete the photos, but they kept reappearing like my phone wanted me to see them. 10 minutes passed. Then 20. Jake never came back. We searched for hours, called the ranger station, the sheriff, anyone, but they didn't find his tracks past the gravel drive. They said search dogs couldn't pick up his scent after 10 feet. It was like the forest swallowed him. Story 2. The motel guest. Nothing bad ever happens to me. That's the lie I'd been running with for almost 30 years. I've slept in my car outside Walmarts, crashed on strangers' floors, even dozed off at a gas station once with the door unlocked. I figured I wasn't the kind of person bad things happened to. Back in June, I was driving cross-country solo trip, just me and the playlist I spent way too long curating. Somewhere in Arizona, I decided to stop for the night. Middle of nowhere, flat out exhausted. I took the first motel I saw off I-40. Neon sign flickering, sunset in. It looked cheap, clean enough, and decent enough not to reek of murder. Good enough. At first, the front desk guy didn't look up from his computer. When I gave him my ID, he froze for just a second too long. You're staying alone? I gave a half laugh. Yeah. Unless you're charging extra for ghosts. He didn't smile. Instead, he handed over the key card and muttered, "Room 108, don't lose it." No. Enjoy your stay. No ice machine directions. Just silence. The weirdness didn't click until I walked back out and realized there weren't any other cars. The lot was empty except mine and a beat-up sedan near the back. He told me all the rooms were booked. I figured maybe everyone was already out for dinner or asleep. Whatever. Room 108 smelled like bleach and carpet glue. Cold, too. Like, it had been blasted with AC 5 minutes before I arrived. Everything was too quiet. No TVs on in neighboring rooms. No voices through walls. Even the buzzing from the vending machine sounded louder than it should have. Somewhere around 2 a.m., I couldn't sleep. Something felt off. I pulled back the curtain to peek out and saw a man crouched under a car across the lot, perfectly still, just looking up at my window. At first, I thought, okay, maybe I'm just seeing things, but he didn't move, he didn't scratch, flinch, blink, just crouched like an animal watching. I closed the curtain slowly, then the landline in the room rang. No caller ID. I picked it up. Static. Then a click. Dial tone. About 10 minutes after that, I heard the door handle jiggle. Not hard, just enough. Like someone was testing it, listening. I stayed frozen under the covers like a 6-year-old. No way I was going to open that door. Eventually, it went quiet again. But I couldn't shake the paranoia, so I grabbed my shoes, locked the door with the chain, and decided to walk back to the lobby and maybe ask for a different room or hell, just leave. The lobby was empty, no night clerk, but the desk was still logged into a feed of the motel security cams. I shouldn't have looked. I know that now. Because at 3:13 a.m., the hallway camera showed a tall figure standing outside my door. Then, 3:15, he somehow opens it with a keycard. I fast-forwarded at 3:23. The camera in my room showed me, asleep, and someone standing in the corner, watching, not moving, not breaking the silhouette, even as the screen flickered. I ran back, flung open the door, nothing. But the chain lock was unlatched. I bolted, didn't check out, just drove. The next day I reported it to the local sheriff. A week later, they called me back. There was no record of anyone else staying in room 108 that night. But the police found something a lot worse. A loose panel in the floor leading to an old supply crawl space and a used sleeping bag underneath. Dusty, but warm, recently used. The worst part was the guy had a room key. And the motel swore on record that they never issued a second one. Story 3, Voices in the Lake. The lake used to be my happy place. Every summer growing up, my family would rent the same little cottage, nothing fancy, just weathered docks, hammocks strung between trees, the smell of pine soaked into every floorboard. It was the one place that always felt untouched by the world. Magic, even. I hadn't been back in over a decade. Life, college, relationships, all of it got in the way. But this past July, a few friends and I rented a cottage for the weekend, and by total coincidence, we ended up just 5 minutes from that same lake. I convinced them to go. I don't know why. I think some part of me missed who I used to be there. Everything was just how I remembered. The crooked dock, the old fire pit made of rocks, even the dragonflies that always hovered near the reeds. It still felt safe, even when it shouldn't have. Saturday night, everyone else passed out early after too many beers. I couldn't sleep. Too many memories crashing into me. I left a note and walked down to the dock alone. The water shimmered under the moonlight, flat and perfect, like glass. I kicked off my shoes and slipped in. It was peaceful at first. Not cold, just still. I floated on my back, eyes on the stars, gently paddling in the silence, and then I heard it. My name, whispered, not shouted, not from the trees, from beneath the water. I thought I imagined it until I heard it again, only clearer, sad, familiar, like the voice of someone who'd once stroked my hair at night. When I looked toward the dock, there was a girl standing at the edge barefoot, hair soaking wet, dripping in silence. She wasn't one of my friends. She looked wrong. Too thin. Too still. I opened my mouth to call out, but she dove into the water soundless, like glass breaking, but silent. I waited for her to surface. She didn't. Panicking, I swam toward where she'd gone in eyes, straining to see bubbles, anything. I took a breath, dove under. That's when something grabbed my ankle. A hand, pale as bone, cold as the lake bed. I thrashed, kick broke loose, surface gasping. I didn't stop swimming until I reached the rocks. Back inside the cabin, I was frantic. No one believed me in the morning. Hungover laughs. Lake dreams, they said. Until I found the photo album on the cabin shelf. Inside were dozens of old family pictures, mine included. Summer photos from years ago. Me, my sister, my cousins, on that same dock. And one photo with a girl circled in red ink. The girl with wet hair, scribbled underneath, Lena, 2003. Not allowed near the dock alone. Lena, my cousin. She drowned when I was 8. I thought it was a dream, a story grown-ups whispered. But I remember her voice now because I heard it in the lake. They say, if you hear your name whispered by water, don't answer. Last week, I got a text from an unknown number. No words, just one photo. Me, standing at the dock, taken from under the water. There's something about vacations that makes us let our guard down. We go looking for peace, for escape, for silence, but sometimes silence listens back. Whether it's a cabin hidden in the woods, a motel off a forgotten highway, or a lake that still remembers what it took, there are places that aren't just empty, they're waiting. The stories you just heard were all shared by people who thought they were safe, people just like you, and maybe that's the scariest part, how close it always feels to happening to you next. Have you ever had a creepy experience while traveling? A place that didn't feel right the second you walked in? Let me know in the comments, I want to hear your story. Because next time you're alone in a cabin, or a motel room, or swimming at night, remember what you heard here and keep the lights on.